us to the audience? I don't remember. Go.
Producer Scott been in the lab. Look at the new intro. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Basketball Conference, the ACC Football Podcast. My name's Joey Weaver. He's Mike McDaniel. Mike, Saturday Night Fever. It is good to be back in the saddle. How are you doing?
We're so back even after 2 games. And listen, hey Scott, you're gonna have to get the bleep button out early. What the fuck, SMU? What are we doing? What are we doing here? What are we doing?
I mean, at least you told me.
I mean, I figured you'd be able to find it a minute into the podcast. I don't understand this at all. Like, I know Joey, you came in thinking and saying as much on the season preview. Hey, I'm not very high on SMU. That's a fine take to have. That doesn't mean they need to lose to Nevada.
Yeah, just to be very clear, like within an hour, I said I don't think SMU is all they're being crocked up to be. And also, I think they're going to cover 27.5 in this game. Like, I did not think it was going to be this. By the way, we record this. It is 10:43 right now on the East Coast. And SMU is down 11 to Nevada in the fourth quarter in a game that they were favored by 4 touchdowns. So
Doesn't look good.
No. And they just missed a field goal. It was a long field goal. It looked ugly. Like, this looks like a game they're going to lose.
It's a mess, dude.
If this is a podcast about honesty, I like to say, and just being very transparent. I'll be real honest. I had dinner, got bedtime for the kids. Like, I didn't really have a chance to watch much of the first 3 quarters of this game, like at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't really plan on having to. I thought this was just going to be a run through. Somebody explain to me what has been going on here, because what a mess.
From my uneducated viewing, I saw that the person that was told was going to be starting quarterback for SMU was not in the game. So that sounds like a problem.
Preston Stone?
Every time I've looked at the screen on this game, the
Jennings
other guy,
played.
Jennings, has been playing.
Jennings has played. They've been shuffling quarterbacks. It's a mess.
Stone played, but from what I could
bad?
tell from Twitter, that I don't know that he came out for an injury. I think he came out because of he sucks. So
Oh no.
He was an all-conference player quarterback last year.
Not in this conference.
Not in this
Mountain West either.
conference is right. Jeez, this is a mess.
Where
This is a mess. Hey man, listen. Shout out Jeff Choate, man, at Nevada, because he inherited a mess. He inherited a mess. I don't want to make you take the bleep button out again. He inherited a mess
too late.
at Nevada, and yeah, the fact that he's got this. He's got SMU, the team that won the American last year, went 11-3. The fact that he's got them on the ropes here with 11 minutes to play, and not only on the ropes, I mean down 2 scores with 11 minutes to play is incredibly impressive.
Ryan House, spot on, by the way. SMU looking like
Incredibly
cheeks
impressive
here tonight.
So
Absolute mess. By the way, just for the record, for those keeping score at home, Nevada, Wolfpack, 2 words. They have won a combined 4 games the last 2 seasons. So this is not really a program that has been having any level of success. And yeah, wow. We'll see. We're gonna keep watching this. They got
not your Kaepernick's Wolfpack. That's what we'll say.
Definitely
not your
not.
Kaepernick's Wolfpack.
Definitely not. A little under 11 minutes to play in this game, so we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll stick around and kind of give a little bit of a recap as soon as this game's over. How's that sound?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do that. Other than that, anything notable happened today, Mike? Did you have a good day? Did you go apple picking, or did you hit the grocery store? Did you take a nice walk around the neighborhood? Anything?
I walked the dogs. I did go to the grocery store. Actually, I missed the first 4 or so minutes of kickoff of the game that we're going to talk about right now, the Georgia Tech game. let me say this. And let me be totally transparent. I had to jump off of the season preview early, as I'm sure a lot of you noticed. About an hour in, had a situation with my dog and the kid. Everything's fine. Had a little bit of a situation. Had to dip a little early. You called an upset here, straight up, and
Who, me?
full transparency. You and full transparency, like if I was on there at that time on the podcast, I would have called you an idiot.
What?
Not to say that not to say
What?
that I didn't think.
Oh, what a loser!
Had to let that play all the way through. Feels good. Not to say that I didn't think this was possible, because Joey, as I'm sure you read, I told you what my pick was. It was, give me Georgia Tech, but if it gets under 10, give me Florida State, right? So, I mean, I thought Georgia Tech would be in this game, thought they'd be in the mix.
Which sounds like you had Florida State by like right at 10 or so.
Ish. Yeah. And, man, I felt good about it after seeing how the first drive went. I was like, Georgia Tech's defense looking like Georgia Tech's defense.
Mm-hmm. How'd you feel after the second drive?
This really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, flat out, just really, really impressive by Georgia Tech. A few different things. I mean, we can jump right in. Like
Georgia
Florida
Tech
State,
24, number 10, Florida State 21.
Let's read the
in
score
Ireland.
off.
Yeah, Georgia Tech hits a game-winning field goal as time expires to avoid overtime and win the game outright.
I feeling pretty good about the Georgia Tech over win total.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling pretty good about the over 4.5. This one, to get to 5 wins, I did not have this one in the win bucket, so I feel like I'm playing with house money. This feels damn good as far as that's concerned. The other thing, like just higher level, like 30,000 foot view. Brent Key is a ball coach, buddy. Got yourself a ball coach down on the flats. Got yourself a ball coach.
Also, he's got some drip. I don't know if anybody saw that College Game Day interview. I said, Coach Key, you looking good, sir.
Well, specifically on the scale of offensive line coaches, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking, I mean,
the Maui gyms on. Looking good.
I mean, speaking of the speaking of offensive line coach, Florida State's got a really, really good defensive front, and they looked lost in the second half. Throughout a lot of the first half, they looked lost defensively. And I texted you, Joey, at one point in the third quarter, and I said, Haynes King is going to have to start making some throws here because it felt like Florida State had cleaned up the run fits. That was a little premature, it turned out, because
I mean,
they cleaned it up
making some throws.
Well, no. I meant in terms of the cleaning up the run fits thing, because they cleaned him up for like a drive and a half, and then all of a sudden Georgia Tech was running the ball again. And to your point, Haynes King made some big-time throws. Big-time throws. Guys draped all over him. He's got guys in his face. He's throwing passes out to the flat where I don't even know how he even saw the guy open. It was one of those situations, and he's done this before. Like, this is something that he does regularly, so it wasn't anything new in terms of like, oh my God, I can't believe he made that throw. He was making those throws last year. I mean, he was doing a lot of this stuff last year, improvising, pocket breaking down, I'm not looking good. He did a lot of that stuff last year, and he did again today, and against a Florida State defense that I think going into the year, everybody's got questions about the Seminoles offense. We'll get to it because there's plenty to talk about there. But defensively, there were less questions, even with some of the guys they lost on that side of the ball. There were much less questions about the defense of Florida State than the offense. And Georgia Tech kind of beat that ass a little bit for a handful of drives. And there was a lot of like first game up and down inconsistency too. But there were a couple drives there, especially in the fourth quarter, where I was like, yo, Florida State's getting that ass worked right now. Like, it's not good. Like, this is not good from a defense that was supposed to come into the year being one of the best in the ACC. It didn't look that way.
I mean, you'll remember Kelly Quinlan on the Georgia Tech preview. He told us this offensive line is looking legit. And it's not just the 5 starters. You know, they've got 8 or 9 deep that they feel really good about having in the game. And I think you saw that today. I mean, because, you know, I talked about that first drive of the game that they had. And of course, Florida State gets the ball to start. They go 7 plays, 75 yards, touchdown, hot knife through butter. I mean, just – and it was like, has the defense improved, like, at all? Because that was vintage garbage Georgia Tech defense. Just with zero resistance, basically. Florida State goes down and scores. Tech gets the ball back. Georgia Tech's offensive line, from like the first play of that drive, had Florida State's defensive line like on skates. I mean, they were just pushing them all over the yard. Florida State was getting no push, and they were able to reconcile that, rectify it, you know, a little bit later, kind of at points in the middle of the game. But Georgia Tech's offensive line, I mean, what a performance from them. I think that was as much as anything kind of what led to this win and what really drove the whole thing. Because, I mean, you know, you make the point. I mean, Haynes King made some throws for sure, and there were times that, I mean, a lot of moxie in there. I mean, he had one where he had a couple of times that he escaped sacks and made throws just in time, like that kind of thing. But more importantly, I mean, just their ability to consistently run the ball throughout the game was incredible. And it's entirely that offensive line is what did that. So I was really, really impressed with Georgia Tech in the trenches there. On the other side of the ball, too, I mean, Florida State, so they ran the ball just, again, hot knife through butter, no problem, first drive of the game. I saw a stat after that first drive, Florida State, the rest of the game, had 25 carries for 35 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech's defense was basically decided, no, DJU, he's going to have to beat us with his arm. You know, we're going to stop the run, and they did. Yeah. And, man, the tackling was good. They were getting some tackles for loss. Florida State was not ripping off chunk plays in any way, shape, or form. Just really, really impressed from Georgia Tech in the trenches, especially within this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be. And, you know, I thought the defensive line for Georgia Tech held up pretty well. I thought Florida State really, everything was hard offensively. Everything was hard. And it's we'll have the broader DJU conversation here in a second, but like the way that Florida State struggled to run the ball against a Georgia Tech defense that was the worst team in the ACC against the run last year was notable because it's not like this was a broad sweeping personnel change here. Like this was, and you know, Santucci is a definite upgraded defensive coordinator, no doubt about it. I tweeted it. We've talked about it. Like very high on the Santucci hire. Both of us were.
Brett Key gave him a huge hug on the field after the game once they got down from the boxes.
Yeah, he's like, oh my God, I don't need to score 40 points per game anymore. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty apparent after game one, and we try not to overreact to one game because I think, and we'll talk about this in a second too, there's a lot of stuff, you know, going on one side, right? And then you got to look at the other side. It's like the equal and opposite reaction thing. It's like Florida State's got plenty of issues of their own to iron out, and we're going to find out here over the course of the year how much of this is, wow, Georgia Tech looked really, really impressive there. Not to take anything away from the Jackets, obviously, Joey, but like, wow, Georgia Tech looked really, really impressive there versus like, wow, Florida State's got a lot of like issues on offense that are worse than we thought on paper. And you and I were kind of texting back and forth about this, but I think that's a really important thing to note here is like, we're going to learn a lot about Florida State too. Like, season's not over. I mean, this is not ideal. Obviously, you don't want to lose your opener. 12-team playoff, like, stuff's different now. But you're in a position, if you're Florida State, where, like, you looked really bad. Like...
Real bad.
But, real bad. And Georgia Tech, a team that... Look, Vegas, and a lot of it was schedule, but, like, you look at the Vegas line, they think you're a 4.5 win team for a reason, right? And to look like that against a team that Vegas is looking at and they're like, yo, I don't think this team's winning 5 games. Like, maybe not. And to look like that on offense, and then more importantly, to look like that on defense, the strength of your team looked like that on defense. A lot more questions coming out of this game about Florida State than Georgia Tech, in my opinion. I'm not surprised. I'm not shocked by the outcome, I would say, on the Georgia Tech side, only because we know their offense is good, right? We know they can run the ball. They were the best team in the conference last year running the football. Statistically, they were the best rushing team in the ACC last year. We knew they could run the ball. So, like, how they won this game today was not a surprise. Like, that was kind of how it needed to be done. They needed to run the ball well. Haynes King needed to make a couple throws, and then the defense needed to make some sort of improvement, some level of improvement, and all of those things happened. That's why Georgia Tech won this game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as we've talked about on the show before, football's a zero-sum game, right? If offense looks good, defense looks bad. Defense looks good, offense looks bad, right? Like, it's part of the reason we look at spring games, and it's like, did you see the offense in that spring game? Like, they looked so good. It's like, yeah, that means the defense looked awful. You know, like, you know, like it's kind of the way it works. And yeah, it's like I don't want to take anything away from Georgia Tech and the credit here, like, because they came out and again whipped Florida State in the trenches and for a lot of this game, like did what they had to do defensively. Again, they had I thought on both sides of the ball, and we've said this before in some of these upsets, and we'll say it again. They had a really good game plan in this game, and there was someone who called that out. Was it Lee Nobody? Someone in the somebody in the trenches, the comments mentioned that
it's the real trenches, Joey.
That's right, the trenches of this podcast. It was a really good game plan. They ran the ball. They shortened the game. I don't know if you realize there were only like 11 possessions in this game.
Yeah, a lot of long drives, more commercial breaks than possessions for sure.
The first half was over in like an hour and 20 minutes. Like it was quick. And so, but I thought they had a really good game plan. They executed it. I did think the defense, again, you know, you talk about improvement there. I thought that they did a really good job of, like, again, run fits, and they tackled reasonably well in a lot of those cases, kind of behind and around the line. Open field tackling, work in progress for sure. But
fourth and forever. I mean, that's where you want to be. You got the Jackets defense right where you want them on 4th and forever.
Yeah.
Turns out.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah, Florida State converts 2 4th and longs in that last drive, and that was a little, you know, that was an experience. But in any case. So again, credit to Georgia Tech, but I agree with you, Mike. Definitely questions of, like, what does this mean for/about Florida State?
Yeah.
And, you know, there's definitely a DJU element of this. Something else that you were all over in our text thread during this game. You basically said Georgia Tech has no respect for these Florida State receivers right now.
None. No. And look,
loading the box, single coverage, like, those guys weren't getting open.
And I want to be fair to Florida State, right? A receiver that they think very highly of, that played sparingly last year just because he was buried on the depth chart and he was a true freshman. Hakeem Williams did not play in this game, and they expect him to be playing a lot of snaps on offense this year. So, I mean, I want to be fair to Florida State, but
that's one guy for what is supposed to be a really talented and deep roster, right?
That's one guy. And we knew stylistically the offense was going to look different, right? We knew it. DJ has done this at 3 different schools. He had negative 0.1 air yards per attempt in the first half, which means he was completing most of his passes behind the line of scrimmage, is what that stat means. Okay, so I want to get that out there in the open. He did complete some passes downfield in the second half, namely those 2 huge 4th down throws he made on that final possession that Florida State had to score the touchdown to tie the game. I do want to get that out there, right? Because I thought DJ played better in the second half in terms of connecting with guys downfield. Now, with that being said, I think this is going to be a case study. Ari Wasserman, formerly of The Athletic, he mentioned this, and I thought it was a great point. I think, look, Norvell has done an outstanding job rebuilding the roster and the culture at Florida State, and he's had to do it both through recruiting, which he's done a great job of, and through the transfer portal, which, you know, you utilize as you need to. last year Florida State relied a lot on the transfers they brought in, right? Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman. You're relying on those types of playmakers in the passing game. You lose Trey Benson at running back. You lose Jordan Travis at quarterback, a guy that was both effective with his legs, right, and a runner, like a defiant runner and a committed runner in the way that DJ Uiagalelei is not. Like, he's a very tentative runner, right? He picks his spots. You lose that element with his legs. You lose a downfield passing game because Travis is very much like, I don't want to call him boomer bust, but he's like a downfield thrower of the football in the way DJ has not been over the course of his career. Every time DJ gets under center, buddy, it's short passing game. And early in his career, you and I wanted to blame it on the Clemson offensive system, which, fair at the time, we didn't know any better. But then he also did the same thing at Oregon State. Now he's doing the same thing at Florida State, where Florida State was one of the best offenses in the country last year. And now that same offensive staff only wants him to throw it like short dink and dunk passes. That's because they don't trust him throwing the ball down the field. That's what that's about. Oregon State's staff didn't trust him throwing down the field. Clemson's staff didn't trust him throwing the ball down the field. So, yes, the passing game is going to look different. DJU was very, I don't even want to call it efficient. I know he completed a high percentage of his throws, but it's a very much like a dink and dunk, don't turn it over offense, which I think will work. I think will work in like 90% of Florida State's games. It didn't work today. It's probably not going to work against Miami.
I was going to say, it ain't going to work against Miami. It's going to work against Clemson.
It's probably not going to. It's not going to work against Florida at the end of the year either. And I know Florida. Everybody's got questions about Billy Napier, but like that team's got talent. Like, it's not going to work against a team like that with that kind of talent either. It's not going to work.
It ain't going to work against Notre Dame either.
Not going to work against Notre Dame either, who's also on the schedule this year.
Like, if this is what their offense has, this is going to be like a 7-5 Florida State team. By the way.
I was going to say. This is 8-4, 7-5 Florida State, and the bigger issue for me, which I haven't even gotten to yet, is the fact that more than a DJU problem, I think Florida State has got a playmaker problem, at least through one game sample size. Georgia Tech had no. This is a Georgia Tech defense that was not very good last year. They had no respect for Florida State's receivers today. None. I mean, they're playing 10. I mean, they're playing like 10, 15 yards off the line of scrimmage, and they're like, "All right, DJ, just beat us with your arm." And they're like, all right, well, he's not going to do that. Also, the receivers just weren't getting open. How long was DJ holding onto the ball? In the first half, it just felt like he was just sitting there and he was holding it, then getting sacked or like picking up like a 1 or 2 yard gain. It just felt like they were in a position all day long where like DJ had nobody to throw to. And when guys were open, he hit the open guy. But Joey,
really
to your point, they had to be really, really open. And he's not ever going to throw guys open. So part of this is a DJ problem. He's not going to throw guys open. He hasn't done that in his career. But also, like, where are Florida State's playmakers at? Where are they? Roydell Williams was the leading rusher today at 12 carries for 38 yards. That's your rushing game?
Yeah.
Is that how you're going to run the football? I don't know what the plan is offensively, but it can't be that for an entire schedule because, like you said, if they come out and do that offensively again, they're going to lose 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, completely. Scott, do we have an SMU update?
We do. They just scored, and then they went for 2. It's a 3-point game now. 8 minutes left.
Down 3, 8 minutes left in Reno. See if the Ponies can get it done. Go ACC to that. I watched this performance from DJU, and all I could think was, this is the exact same guy we were watching 2 years ago at Clemson. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a bunch of dink and dunk stuff, but the moment that you start trying to push the ball down the field, I mean, he was inaccurate. For a guy who seems mobile and like can move, it's like he just kind of refuses to get momentum going at times, and like, I don't know.
Forward.
I was underwhelmed by him at Clemson. I mean, I always remember the Notre Dame game that he had in the COVID year as a freshman. and he went out and threw for 500 yards or whatever it was, and I think they lost that game in South Bend, but it was like DJU was not the problem there. Like he had a great game, like all that stuff. Since then, I'm not sure the last time I saw him play a game and I was like, wow, like he was really good in that game. Like for a guy who was a 5-star, all everything kind of guy, I'm incredibly underwhelmed by him. And this is a clear step back. Yeah. It's different, and it's a step back from what they had with Jordan Travis. I think it's something to keep an eye on for sure, because, again, he had guys open down the field a handful of times in this game, and he's just sailing throws left and right. Like they're off target, they're late. You know, we mentioned. I mean, he can hit some guys, but like they got to be really open. You know, underwhelmed, very underwhelmed. And there's a piece of me that wonders, like, is Mike Norvell going to go through this the whole year with DJU, or do we go to the backup whose name is escaping me? He played the ACC championship game last year, and
that was the game. Transfer?
I don't think so. Tate Rodemaker transferred, but
okay, that's who I was thinking of.
Their third stringer last year is now their backup, and there was a thought around the time that Jordan Travis got hurt that somebody's got this name for me, but in any case, like the thought was like he might have a shot to be the starter next year, and they like him and all that stuff. Come on, find it. What's his name?
I got you.
Brock Glenn.
Brock Glenn, that's the one.
Brock Glenn, thank you. Yep, I kept thinking of Chuba Purdy, but he's gone.
Yeah,
he's gone. Yeah, he's transferred and he's a backup now. He lost his
Nevada muffed the kickoff. Yeah, that was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're pinned deep on their own end of the field. That's a good way to lose a game.
Can we talk about one thing? They don't have much time to figure this out. They got to play next week, another conference game, right?
Yep.
They play BC, and it's a really important game.
Tornado. Bill O'Brien's Boston College Eagles.
Is this a safety? SMU? No. Okay, they're on the 1-inch line though.
Oh, I didn't see they were. I knew they were way on their own end of the field. I didn't realize that they were like on the 1. Goodness. SMU.
Mike, you have a question.
Serious break here.
Mike, you have a question from Joe the pilot. He needs to know what you think of GT's win.
Well, the second part, I think Georgia Tech will finish top 4 in the ACC again. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about all that.
Safety?
What do I think at the win?
It's looking like a safety.
Like
safety. SMU.
Yep.
They got a 1-point game. Sorry.
I'm going to need like 25 more points here. Somebody who's holding a 24.5 ticket.
I have bad news, Mike.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I know.
I don't think that's getting home.
Never say never. It's week 0. It's week 0, and it's after 11 o'clock. Never say never. We still got Hawaii tonight. Hawaii, Delaware State. You stand up for that? Hawaii's only like a 32-point favorite.
My homeland, baby.
Absolutely not.
Go
one
Hornets.
of Delaware State's 2 wins last year was against Lynchburg College in Virginia, Division III.
I don't think I would stay up for that if I didn't have kids.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those games Scott and I would fire on before we pass out.
Anyway, so you have Georgia Tech in the top 4 of the ACC now?
No. I mean, they are today. But, no, I mean, I think, I think as somebody holding an over 4.5 ticket for Georgia Tech, I mean, I go into the year thinking they're going to be better than a lot of people think, because I did like the Santucci hire, right? So, like I said, I'm a little surprised by the result today, but not because of anything Georgia Tech did. It was more of what Florida State didn't do, right? Like, I mentioned this, but for Georgia Tech to win the game, they had to do offensively what they were doing all of last year, right? And Haynes King needed to take care of the ball. It's like, okay, well, you did exactly what you were doing last year on offense, and Haynes King took care of the ball, so you check both those boxes. And then defensively, you had to prove that you were able to stop the run, something you literally could not do last year. I mean, Bowling Green ran all over you, right? So, like, just prove you can stop the run, and they did. And then they ran into a situation here, a quarterback, where like DJ Uiagalelei doesn't scare anybody. Like Georgia Tech's defense was not scared of the passing game of Florida State today. They have no reason to be. Florida State's top receiver, one of their top receivers, wasn't in the lineup. DJU is DJU, and they're looking at the scouting report. They're considering who Florida State's going to throw out there at receiver, and they're like, you know what? I'm not worried about these guys. These are a bunch of young, unproven players, and they came out as a secondary that, by the way, like Georgia Tech secondary, and we talked about this with Kelly, it's kind of the strength of their defense, right? So, like, I don't want to take anything away from Georgia Tech secondary either. This isn't, like, just a Florida State playmaker problem. This is also, like, Georgia Tech secondary had some stretches of decent play last year. So it's one of those things where it's like a lot of things went right today for Georgia Tech, but the bigger surprise was how many things went wrong for Florida State. And I look at Georgia Tech's schedule, and it's hard, right? But there are games on there that I think you go into them thinking they might be toss-ups, and now you're thinking, like, after a one-game sample size, look, maybe they can actually win that game. Maybe this is actually a bowl team, right? Kelly Quinlan came on here and said 8-4, and I listened back to that, and I was like flabbergasted. I'm like, 8-4. Where do you see 8 wins? And I'm still not sure I see 8 wins, but I would be surprised after one game if they didn't make a bowl game, especially if they're going to be competent on defense. If they're going to be competent on defense, they're absolutely making a bowl game.
Yeah.
And maybe that 8-4 thing isn't so far-fetched, right? So do I think they can be top 4 in the ACC? I think it's possible. Like, I'm not sure it's probable. I think it's possible if the defense is going to play like this against better offenses that they have on the schedule, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. Now, I'll tie Virginia Tech in real quick. Virginia Tech had an issue last year, like for much of the year in the linebacking core, which they feel like they addressed in the offseason in the transfer portal. Same thing on the interior defensive line. But I think, watching this game today and kind of how we preview Georgia Tech, what we expected out of Haynes King anyway, this just kind of further solidifies the fact that, like, if Virginia Tech's run fits don't improve a lot, and they got better throughout the year last year, but, like, if they don't improve a lot, Georgia Tech can pose a lot of problems in the running game for Virginia Tech on the interior. And I know Tech got Aeneas Peebles. He's an all-ACC player, defensive tackle. That'll help. I know they got Sam Brumfield, all-conference player from Middle Tennessee State at Mike linebacker. That'll help. But, like, if they don't solidify the run fits, Georgia Tech is the type of team that could give Virginia Tech a lot of trouble, right?
Oh,
so that's an example of one of those 50-50 games, right, where, like, yes, do I think Virginia Tech offensively can pose some problems for Georgia Tech? Yeah. But also, like, if Georgia Tech's defense is improved, that becomes a tricky spot for Virginia Tech in Blacksburg. So
yeah, that's
one of those games, right, where you're talking about, okay, is Georgia Tech going to be a top 4 team in the ACC? That's a game you have to win, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just one of a handful of 50-50 games on the schedule outside of the really difficult ones. So, I came away today really impressed with Georgia Tech. Like, Santucci, phenomenal hire and really good early returns. But we don't want to overreact to week 0 either. Let's see if this is something that can continue to progress throughout the year. And if so, I think this team is absolutely primed to be in a position to make a bowl game and maybe even better than that, right? Be a 7 or an 8 win team, which would be give Brent Key whatever he wants at that point. This is a proof of concept win. He had a couple of them last year. He also had some like head scratching question marks. Could those come later in this year? Absolutely, they can. But this was like a proof of concept win against a team that did not lose a game in the regular season last year and won the ACC.
Yeah.
Different team, sure, but like from a talent standpoint, still got a lot of talent on the roster. They've recruited well, add to the portal. You beat that ass today. The better team won the game today, Joey. Like the better team won the game. Georgia Tech was way more consistent throughout that game than Florida State was.
Yeah. Yeah, you got past the first, 10-ish minutes of the game, and it kind of felt like Florida State was chasing more than more than anything. I mean, it kind of felt like Georgia Tech
Yeah.
was in control of that game in a lot of ways. It's funny you talk about the kind of defenses that I think Georgia Tech is in position to take advantage of. It was something that I think I kind of noticed it, kind of knew it last year, but it really kind of hit me today. Was this offense that Buster Faulkner is running is really fun to watch. Like whether it's really like working or whether they're scoring or not. Just watch them break the huddle. They go get in a formation, and then two guys are going to move around, and there's going to be another shift, and then there's going to be pre-snap motion, and it's like there's like all sorts of stuff going on with this offense, and it's one of those things where you kind of talk about, can the linebackers fit the run? It's also like, can they keep their eyes in the right spot? Can things like that? Like they are going to mess with people that are not fundamentally sound in a lot of ways, and so. It's fun to watch, and I do think it also hit me today that between Buster Faulkner and Mike Norvell, we might have just watched a game between two of the 10 or 12 best play callers in the country. Like, I think we can kind of start having that conversation with Buster Faulkner, and I realize they're not going to light up the scoreboard every game and win every game, but like some of the stuff that he does is really creative and innovative with, again, shifts and motions and you show one thing and you do another. Like it's really cool to watch.
Enjoy them while you have them. That's two things. Enjoy them while you have them. Number one. Number two. The reason why I say that is because I'd be really, really hard pressed. I know Norvell can call a football game. I'd be hard pressed to find many coordinators in the conference better than Buster Faulkner. And this isn't just reaction out of today. I thought that last year. I thought that last year. So this is not just like today isn't just another data point of him being able to really scheme something up and cause defenses a lot of problems. I mean, when Nick Saban is going on
last year.
When Nick Saban, and I know Nick Saban, look, Brent Key used to be on his staff. I know he loves Brent Key. But when Nick Saban's going on College Game Day and he's talking about Buster Faulkner and talking about how difficult their offense is to scheme for, that's telling you everything that you need to know, right? So enjoy him while you have him, because I personally think he's one of the 2 or 3 best play callers in the ACC.
Completely.
And that speaks to what you were just saying about the game plan today, which I thought was really good.
Yep, completely. Wanted to talk for a minute about Brent Key, but before we do that, I'll remind you, this podcast brought to you by Section103.com, the internet's premier place for all things wonderful Georgia Tech apparel. Things for men, women, children, T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, something for the whole family, NIL shirts. By the way, Mike, I recorded a drop to be used on all of our different previews. And it was like 2 days later after I recorded that drop that Section 103 put out a whole new swath of shirts. They've got an NIL shirt for Eric Singleton Jr., wide receiver. It's a nice jersey for him. They've also got a sweet new Haynes King shirt going back to their upset win over North Carolina last year, where Haynes King, at the end of the game, they asked, what was that like? He said it was tech-like. Super cool, super sexy shirt on Section103.com. Go get it all there. Use promo code GOACC for 10% off your first order. And, by the way, your first order you can get 10% off, but if you've ordered there before, I hope you're keeping an eye on social media, because as we sit here the night of the Georgia Tech win over Florida State, you'll probably note that Georgia Tech beating the number 10 team in the country meant that the entire site is 10% off for the rest of the day. So make sure you're following them on social media, Facebook, Instagram, all that, Section 103. If you're new, promo code GOACC gets 10% off your first order. Even if you're not, for the next 12 hours, I don't know. Ask Steven. He'll tell you, but that'll also get you 10% off your order as Georgia Tech knocks off the number 10 Florida State Seminoles. Shout out to him for his support. I've been wearing this shirt all day. It is the Performance Tech shirt showing the state of Georgia, showing the little football icon there where Atlanta is, where Georgia Tech is.
Yeah.
So really comfy shirt, has done really well. I think I got a little bit of spit up on it, maybe even from from the kid. So
is that what it's from?
Yeah, that's what it's from. Yeah.
Okay.
From the kid.
Just
Spit up. It is, I swear. Anyways.
We're 39
Section
minutes
103.
in. This is what happens.
Well, kind of stuff you want to talk about during ad reads. Section103.com. Use promo code GOACC for 10% off your first order. Thanks to Steven and the gang for their support. Lots of cool new stuff there. Go check it out. Wanted to mention with Brent Key. So something that I had mentioned, I think when they hired him and kind of brought it up a couple times, I've thought that the ceiling for the Brent Key hire was like Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern or Kyle Whittingham at Utah. And I realized that when they made that hire and it seemed like kind of Willie Fritz turned him down more or less for whatever reasons, kind of circumstantial if nothing else, but Willie Fritz turns him down. They hire Brent Key, the interim, never been a head coach before, he had been a coordinator. He actually was an interim head coach, I think, at UCF for a year when they went like 0-12, so that was great. But it seemed like, it's the discount hire, we'll kind of bridge to the next coach, whatever. And it was like, well, I could see kind of some upside here. Again, Kyle Whittingham, Pat Fitzgerald, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I am so impressed by so much of what I see from him with the staff that he's hired, some of the recruiting that he's starting to do, some of the guys he's taken out of the transfer portal. Like, this feels like we are approaching a ceiling scenario with Brent Key. Like, this is going about as well as I could have ever asked for or imagined. And just incredibly impressed with the way that this program has gone for, nearly 2 years now since he was named the interim at the very least.
Yeah. I mean, I think we went from a guy who was almost like a temporary fix to, okay, we're reaching everybody's expected ceiling in the first game of his second full year as coach. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's time to readjust expectations. Just want to get that out there. Also, SMU is driving, by the way, on Nevada with not a ton of time left, like a little over 2 minutes, and I hope they have a 26 point play in the bag because your boy needs it. Just want to point that out there. But yeah, I agree.
A tweet from Paul Johnson.
Congratulations,
the people wanted to see it.
Yeah.
Opening with a nice win. It was fun to watch a physical team pound the ball. Good luck the rest of the season.
Thanks, Paul.
Back to Turkey.
Paul had a lengthy interview. It was back in February, I think, with a radio station in like Central Georgia, basically. And it was the weekend that he was going to be put into the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame. And he went off on what he thinks of Jeff Collins, basically. Basically did not mince words. It was really funny. I think it was Bill Shanks as the host, and he kind of just like threw a comment out, and it was really kind of opened the door, but really he's like, I know that you're not going to say much about this guy or whatever. He's like, let me tell you what I think of this guy. And he just like went off, and it was really funny. But in doing that, it was like I think he also kind of talked about, no, I've got some respect for Brent Key, and I think Paul was really irritated with the program shortly after he left and kind of the way that Jeff Collins treated him. But I think Brent Key has been a lot more respectful and has wanted to engage him and involve him. And it's I think a lot of those fences are mended with the Georgia Tech football program, at least, not necessarily with Jeff Collins.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
I don't know. They just showed this on TV, so I clipped it for people to see what's at stake here for Nevada.
1 point game, minute and 50, clock's ticking. SMU got the ball at like the 33 now of the first down.
Yeah.
The bottom line is the best. The last time they won a game, last October.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute. One of their few wins last year.
27.5 point favorites.
Yeah, we'll get into this in a second because this game's about to go final. Oh my God, what are we doing?
That's pass interference, right?
No way. No. Let him play.
I mean, I don't care.
That was a heaving hope.
That was clean. That was clean.
Sure.
No,
depends
it's
on
fine.
depends on which refs.
Receiver turns around, just trips over his own feet. That was
They're
fun.
not
This
gonna,
is excellent
they're not gonna
content. I
bail
hope
him
I
out
hope
on that.
everyone in the chat, especially our homies, Lead Nobody and Dennis from last season, are watching along with us, and all the new guys. Thanks for subscribing.
Mm-hmm.
Joey, do you feel better about both of our Miami picks to win the conference? Are we feeling good after watching that?
Oh,
today?
that's a
Touchdown.
touchdown.
That's a touchdown.
That's a
There you go.
touchdown for the ponies.
Wide open. Is that RJ Maryland?
Wow. It only took 58.5 minutes, but SMU now has the lead.
Look, big time throw by Preston Stone there, by the way.
That was a really good throw, honestly. I didn't see what he was doing early in the game that he apparently just, again, cheeks, but
In the range of cheeks.
yeah, in the range, yeah, somewhere in the range of cheeks.
Somewhere in
No,
the range of cheeks. Yeah.
that throw, not cheeks. That was a good throw.
That was RJ Maryland. He's going to be first team All ACC at tight end unless Gadsden wins it. But
Yep. To your question, Mike, and Peanut 3844 Abel, that rolls off the tongue. I feel a little better, about Miami now, honestly, because, and again, part of picking Georgia Tech to win the game as I did was like it's a spot, right? Game one, weird environment, travel situation, like all that stuff, and just with all the stuff to replace. And I think I had said if this was week 6 in Tallahassee, I'm probably not picking Georgia Tech to win the game. Like,
Right.
it was the spot. But I think that what we saw was some like legitimate aspect of Florida State being a little limited on offense, and it's the DJU thing. We used to call him Big Cinco. I realized earlier he wears number 4 now, so now he's Big Quattro, I guess.
Big Quattro.
Big Quattro. I don't know that he's the goods, man. He was a 5-star recruit, and he's just not that.
Yeah.
And I mean, Jordan Travis did enough for that offense that I just don't think he's going to be able to replicate. And
Yeoman's work, as they say.
all of it. So,
All right, Nevada's still alive.
Yeah, still left.
2-point conversion, no good.
got a 5-point game here.
Sorry, Chris Grondin, who's watching on something called Meth Streams. You should get that checked out, buddy.
Meth stream?
That's what he
Try
said.
Stream
Bro, what?
East. Stream East, baby.
It's like meth for your laptop or something? Like, what are we doing?
Stream East.
There used
So,
to be
at
crack
that point-
streams, so maybe that's what he's talking about.
Yeah,
I
a
don't
little
know.
crack stream. Yeah.
So basically, if I'm like more concerned about Florida State now than I was before, that means I'm less convinced that they might give Miami a problem. So yeah, like I think what I saw today does make me feel a little bit better about Miami. Like,
Yeah.
Florida State is less of an obstacle for them than I thought.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think everybody, and I group us in there because I was certainly in there, was thinking this was like a 3-team, legitimately, like on paper, a 3-team race between Florida State, Miami, and Clemson. And then I thought there was a little bit of a gap, and I thought there were some teams that could sneak in: NC State, Louisville, Virginia Tech. Those were the primary 3, and I thought there was like that third group that was probably led by SMU. I don't feel as good about that watching this Nevada game tonight.
No.
Don't feel as good about that. But that's kind of how I thought it would be on paper. So, yeah, I mean, I think Florida State, don't want to overreact because we do this a lot. We watch a lot of football.
Yeah.
We watch one game and we're like, oh, and everybody's eyes are on it because it's like the first game of the year, right? So my colleague at SI, Pat Forty, tweeted this. He was like, all right, let's watch this like a semifinal, which was very funny because like that's what everybody was doing. Everybody was like so cracked out on college football. They're like, all right, let's lock into Florida State, Georgia Tech. So everybody's eyes are on it, and everybody's going to have their minds made up. We saw all the jokes about DJU, and like I mentioned, he was a problem today, right? But I think there were other contributory factors to why Florida State looked the way that they did. And I think he was a factor. I'm not sure he was the factor. We'll see, right?
He was a
DJU
factor.
didn't get pushed around by Georgia Tech's offensive line.
Right.
I mean,
Right. I mean, he's waiting for his receivers to get open, and then Georgia Tech's defensive line is working, right? And like you said, Florida State up front offensively, scary hours a little bit. So in a way that we weren't expecting. This all ties back. This all ties back to the Jeff Collins conversation we were just having between Collins and Key. Jeff Collins is like the all bark no bite thing, and Brent Key comes from like the Nick Saban line of thinking, which is like, let's just go play, right? Like, let's put our hands in the dirt. Like, let's put the ball down and let's just like go get it. And I think for where Georgia Tech was at post Collins, the fact that they kind of landed on Key, and I love Willie Fritz. I think he's a very good coach. I think he'll do a great job at Houston for as long as I know he's in his 60s, but like as long as he's there, I think he'll do a great job. This year, I think will be pretty rough.
I think it would have been a decent hire if Tech had gotten him.
Agree. We talked about it a little bit. I think
at the time might have looked like a better hire than Brent Key did. Like,
oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, in the moment, we would have been like, oh yeah, like
good hire, yeah.
When Brent Key was hired, we were like, okay, like we'll see. Like it's not the worst. Like it's not the worst. Like he took over as an interim and looked pretty good. Like it was fine, but it was different.
Didn't feel bad. Weren't totally sure. Yeah.
Right. And if they hired Willie Fritz, who would have been like, all right, well, good coach Tulane. Like the team looks really, really good, and he only further validated that last year by getting him to the American Conference Championship game, nearly winning the league. So
yeah.
I think that would have been a fine hire, but I think that the Brent Key hire is a good hire for what they needed post Collins. They needed to get back to, okay, look, we're coming out of the Johnson era where we were running the option. It's like a totally different thing, right? And now we're kind of embracing like this new spread offense way of college football in a way that we didn't in the Johnson era, obviously. But we need a guy who is like less worried about the stuff off the field and like brand and all this stuff, which is a really important part of college football right now, but like not the way Collins was doing it. Like we got to get away from that and back to like focusing on our personnel, who we're recruiting, how we're coaching them up, how we're developing. And that's all Brent Key cares about, is developing his players. Right? Bringing the right guys in, developing the players. And look, the defense was abhorrent last year, and he made a change. It was his first full year as a head coach. He's like, let's make a change. Made a change. Hired Santucci. Obviously, very good track record at Duke. Elko, I think, would have liked him at A&M. Like, would have been nice for him to probably hire him there. Didn't do it. Right?
Yep.
Ends up at Georgia Tech, and I think they're in a situation now where like they have the right guy at the right time, and it's just kind of building on how they looked throughout most of last year. And so now it's, you got to prove that you're not this isn't like a one game thing. You got to prove that you can get like a Bowling Green type game out of your system. Like, don't have that type of game this year, right? That's kind of the next thing we need to see, because this is a little bit of a rebuild. It's not like a total rebuild, but it's like a mini rebuild that he's doing post Collins. And we got to see that.
Completely agree. And that's, I want to go back to, I think it was Joe the Pilot in the comments who made the initial comment about like, are they maybe a top 4 team in the ACC? And that was one of the first places that my mind went, Mike, was looking at the schedule. And honestly, I'll say, especially the next 2 weeks, but to some degree, maybe the next 4, I think we're going to learn a lot about what this team is and isn't. Because you got to fly home, and next Saturday at home, you're going to be playing Georgia State. Yeah. A team that is expected to be not very good, like at all, like arguably one of the worst in the FBS. But it's going to be their Super Bowl game. Kind of like the one you lost to Northern Illinois. Kind of like the one you lost to Bowling Green. Like, you have had these brain fart games year in, year out for a number of years, honestly. And so that is a game that Georgia Tech will be favored by probably 17. I think I maybe even seen like 21. Like, they're like a 3-touchdown favorite next week.
Yeah.
I'm nervous. Like, I think I think Georgia State is like 11-1 on the money line. Like I might be interested in sprinkling that a little bit just because, like, man, this is how this team and this program have been for a long, long time. It's like you need to prove to me that you can go out there and it's game 2. You're not as up for playing them as you're playing Florida State. Can you take care of business and win that game and not make it a whole thing? Like, that's a big deal. Then can you go on the road to the Carrier Dome or what JMA Wireless or whatever the hell?
There it is. Nailed it, Joey.
And go beat a Syracuse team that, if nothing else, should be pretty frisky. Year 1 under Fran Brown, like, got some new players in there. Like, last time you were in the Carrier Dome, you lost in the COVID year, and the Syracuse went 1-10. You were the 1-1-10. Not great. So you should be the better team in both of those games. Can you take care of business? That's what I want to see. And then I would really like to think you beat VMI. And then I think a really good test is at Louisville on the 21st of September before the bye week. So first 5 games of the year, you start 1-0. You could be 5-0. And at that point, the world's your oyster. But can you really avoid tripping over your own, in the next couple weeks? We'll see.
I'll tell you what, the world would most certainly be my oyster holding a over 4.5 ticket, if that's how that works. I'd be
cash
feeling
that
great.
by the end of September. Let's go.
I would be feeling fantastic about that. Yeah, cashing it in the first month and have that on the bingo card, as the kids say. But I would be very excited about that. SMU survives, like Scott mentioned, 29-24 over Nevada.
Sloppy.
And look, I just tweeted this. Lashley and SMU got that out of their system, but that was an uninspiring start to the 2024 season.
Scott, you and I know as well as anybody, they don't draw pictures on the scorecard. That's 1-0.
Hell yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
1-0. We've spent almost an hour talking about Georgia Tech, so we can talk this SMU game a little bit if y'all want to here.
Well, they won.
Sure. Cardell Jones is on CBS Sports Network as an analyst. Look at that,
12 gauge. Look at that.
He ain't come here to do broadcast.
Zone 6, baby. He didn't come here to do broadcast. He didn't come here to do podcasts either.
On one level, that, but also on another level, man, CBS Sports Network digging deep. What is going on? How do we pull Cardell Jones out of here? Wow. All right.
RJ, what you doing, bro? What are we doing on Saturday night?
National title winning quarterback, I guess. But
oh God, what's
SMU 29, Nevada 24 in a game where SMU. It was a weird line situation. Like when I was looking at it, I saw it at 27 and a half. That's what we did on the podcast. Scott, I think you had a ticket at 20, or did you just see it at 24 maybe? And then it jumped back up.
I never looked at this game. I only looked at the Florida.
I had
it
24 and a half. I had it at 24 and a half.
I was gonna say, so I think it was at 27 and a half, and then it came down 3 points, and then it went back up today, or like maybe yesterday. Like, I don't know what the deal was here, but in any case, SMU was supposed to win by a hell of a lot, and they kind of had to pull this one out at the end. And so, I mean, game 1, weird stuff happens, but again, this is a Nevada team that it was 4-20 the last 2 years coming in.
4 touchdown spread, and you literally had to score with a minute to go.
That's not ideal. Well, and especially so I'll say so. There's that. Is not only like this game was like way too close for what it should have been. Number one. Number two, if I'm SMU, we've talked a little bit about Preston Stone, potential like best quarterback in the ACC, potential like ACC Player of the Year candidate. Like Preston Stone's kind of supposed to be the guy on this team, and from what I can tell, again, first quarter or so, Cheeks, And eventually, so Kevin Jennings gets in there for a little bit, does okay, and then Preston Stone comes in, and I think the final line looks okay, but man, he had a brutal first quarter to 20 minutes of this game, and that is not a good look for a team that's going to rally around that guy.
The concern I have for SMU is more about like, who are they going to throw to outside of RJ Maryland? I know you want to get him the ball as much as you can, but like, he had 8 for 162, and the second leading receiver was Roderick Daniels, and he had 3 catches for 28 yards. Like, you gotta have other guys to throw to. A pass was completed to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different guys, but like, I don't know. I mean, I went into this thinking, just based off of what SMU's offense was last year, that they'd just like be kind of humming and clicking on all cylinders, especially considering what Nevada was last year, especially on defense. Nevada had I mean, they weren't very good on offense either, but they had a really, really bad defense. And the fact that SMU was really struggling to score, I mean, they were trailing this game at halftime. Yeah, I mean, not great. You kind of had to pull a rabbit out of a hat, and you let RJ Maryland get loose on a streak down the left sideline, and Preston Stone made the biggest throw of the game when he needed to. But the fact that they had to go away from Stone and go to Kevin Jennings, and the fact that Lashley sent both Stone and Jennings to ACC Media Day, it's like, yeah, I kind of like raise an eyebrow at that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, something to watch. I know Bud Elliott from Cover 3 mentioned this, but he's like, is there a chance that Stone actually might be some ass? And I thought that was like a little disingenuous given how he played last year. But now after watching this, I'm like, oh, maybe not. But I don't know. I think SMU, I mentioned this on the season preview, SMU put a lot of stock into like what they brought in via the portal in the trenches. And they didn't necessarily look very good tonight. I mean, they really struggled to run it against Nevada, which, are you going to struggle to run it against, like, I don't know, name your mid-ACC team on the schedule, Boston College? Like, are you can you run it against them? Like, those are kind of questions I have.
So, do you remember the stat that I brought up on the preview of the SP Plus rankings of the teams that SMU beat last year?
Yeah, and how bad the American was in general.
Mm-hmm. Do you know where Nevada finished last year in SP Plus rankings?
Out of 133
there were
or 4 teams, whatever it was.
133 teams. And I'll give you a hint. That number is kind of important.
DFL?
Were they dead? Were they dead last? Yeah, DFL.
You're very close. They were 132nd out of 133 teams. That was the second worst team in the country last year.
Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof.
SMU needed all 60 minutes to beat what was the second worst team in the country last year by SP Plus. Now, the good news is this year there are 134 teams, and Nevada is not one of the bottom 2 or 3 teams in the country by preseason SP Plus projections.
Yeah.
So that's the good news. The bad news is that they are 121st. So they are still a bottom 15 team in the country that SMU needed a full 60 minutes to beat. That is not a good sign. And it is, it does kind of go with my theory a little bit around SMU being a preseason 27th ranked team in the country by SP Plus that I don't, it is supposedly adjusted for strength of schedule. I'm not so sure it's adjusted quite enough because I don't know that they are legitimately a top 30 team in the country. But we'll see.
Again,
we'll find out.
Just gotta throw this out here for not only you and I, Joey, and Scott. but also for the broader listenership, it is game one.
Completely true. And
it's game one. Now
it's game one, and the biggest jump always happens from game one to game two, right? Like,
but
dead serious. Like, don't put too much into game one.
But it's the only data point we have. It's the only It's the only data point we have.
It's not a good data point.
It's not a good one. It's not very good. Not the best.
Can I change topics? Are we done with SMU?
I think everyone's probably ready to be done with SMU.
Yeah, I mean
Welcome
that's
to the
okay.
That's enough.
Okay,
Welcome to the ACC.
looking
Congrats
ahead.
on 1-0. Yep.
Looking ahead, FSU is currently 17.5-point favorites against Boston College in a week and a half. I think I like Boston College 17.5.
It's a lot of points. Is Florida State scoring 17?
Leave it alone. I don't want any part of trying to figure out what Florida State is going to be in like 8 days in Tallahassee against Boston College under
Let
a new
alone
coach.
In a 25,000 seat stadium or whatever it is going to be this year with the renovations.
More than that, but it's reduced. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, we have no idea what Boston College is going to be.
Again,
You guys have to
game
preview
one-
this game in like 3 days, so I'm just giving you a little
I know we do.
toss-up.
I know. We're gonna sound really educated when we do it too. I bet.
Oh, and Dennis read my mind. UVA, Calandria, because that's the right choice for the team morale. Because everybody knows he's more fun.
He's more fun.
He's more fun, and the way that I put it was picking Anthony Calandria. He's gonna lose you a game or two by just
Or
making
3.
like wildly reckless decisions. But those wildly reckless decisions might also win you about the same number of games that they lose you. So like, at least make it entertaining and fun. Like, just do it.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was when he was a true freshman last year. As a sophomore, maybe those reckless decisions are a little bit more informed and less reckless. And now he's more informed, hucking it down the field and picking up big plays. Like,
I was entertained by him playing last year. I liked it. So
Yeah.
I don't really like that team at all. But when he played, I was like, all right, Tony and his Tonys, let's do it. But the other Tony, I did not like.
it's like that old line from Drumline, the movie with Nick Cannon of, well, he makes stuff happen. He does,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's good for Virginia, and sometimes it's bad, but it makes for an entertaining football watching experience.
The one thing I'll mention, and maybe talk now turn, I don't know. Justin Ferber mentioned to me, and I can't remember if this was on the actual preview or not, or if this was before we hit record. But
I think you said it was afterwards, and then
okay, this is going to be a well received decision in the locker room. Is what I would say.
Yeah, that's what I just said for team morale. Like,
Right.
the players
Like,
know.
is, and also like with the staff,
Yeah.
it was a matter of
Sorry, Mr. Musket.
a matter of making sure the entire staff was on board situation. And I think Calandria obviously earned it in camp. I don't think we're like breaking any like new ground here. And I think at this point, Justin would
He
be
arguably earned
fine.
it last year, to be honest. I mean,
I think our
they
guy
won
Justin
3
Ferber.
games.
Well, I think our guy Justin Ferber would be fine with us talking about this now. Like now that he's been named the starter, he's obviously earned it in camp. But this is a situation where like the entire staff needed to see it to be on board with it, right? Just like any situation. And when we did the preview, what Justin mentioned was that they needed to see a little bit more in camp for him to kind of be the guy. But this was a move off of last year and how he played when he was in there. This was the move that a lot of people kind of wanted to make and was hoping the decision makers like Tony Elliott would make. And Yeah, he arrived at that decision. Now, I mean, we'll see that there's good and bad with Calandria. I think he's definitely way more fun. He's the higher variance guy, I think, based on what we've seen. I mean, at least what we've seen out of Musket at UVA, I think it's clear that like Calandria is a higher variance guy. All things equal, and both are healthy. But is he going to keep you in a shootout in a way that Musket might not? Maybe. Is he going to lose you a few games? It's going to make you want to throw your remote through the television? Probably. So does my outlook on Virginia change because of who they picked? Not a lot. Not a lot. Like, do I think they can win more than 3 games?
I think it gives them way more upside.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly gives them way more upside. But
it raises their, what is it called? It raises their ceiling,
floor,
but not their floor.
Hit their floor,
or their floor, whatever.
Okay, all right,
like they can't get that much worse. So like it only can make them better.
It probably raises their floor more than their ceiling, I would say.
Yeah,
it might raise both, honestly, though. It might raise both.
What's funny to me is it's kind of just now occurring to me that Virginia going with Calandria as their starter means Musket is their backup. Mm-hmm. And honestly, Tony Musket is like a really good backup quarterback seeming kind of guy. Like he was made to be, he's safe with the ball. He plays completely within structure. Like everything's by the book. That's exactly what you want from a backup quarterback. He should have been a backup from the beginning. Like what have we been doing this whole time? Like you had the whole thing right in front of you.
I'm not saying they'll do this, but like if Calandria is total ass, like they'll just go to Musket.
Yeah.
Tony and his Tonys.
And look, like the other thing
Tony
to monitor
Elliott,
here,
Tony Calandria, Tony Musket, yeah.
The other thing to monitor here too is like they saw enough out of Calandria in year 1 to like give him the opportunity to obviously go ahead and start this year or like be in competition for a starting job. But like if we're like 4 or 5 games in and he's total ass and they go back to Musket, it's pretty clear that they're like going to be looking for another quarterback next year. Like I think we can all agree there, right? So like I think you go with Calandria and you roll the dice and see how September goes. And then if he's terrible, you go back to Musket and you come to terms with the fact that like you're going to be looking for another quarterback in 25. I think that's where we're at because like Calandria, if he couldn't win the starting, like he won the starting job obviously out of camp, but like if he couldn't hold it down, right, and there was not enough in 23. I know it was a whole back and forth last year with him and Musket. They were like shuffling quarterbacks a good bit, and then once Musket was healthy, he started again, and then he got hurt, and then you put Calandria back in. But like if that's not enough, and like Calandria struggles, and you throw Musket back into the lineup, like they're going to go with somebody else in 25. Like Musket will be out of eligibility, and Calandria, because it's the transfer portal era, he'll be out. He'll be on his way out. They'll find somebody else. So it's just another story to monitor.
Yep. Yeah. Going to be interesting to see kind of how this works or doesn't. Because it's been almost a year that you and I have both been like begging them to do this. And, you know, again, he had some really good moments last year. And I remember like a Maryland game on a Friday night that he was just out there hucking that thing and either won him or nearly won him the game. It was like
one of his first starts.
Yeah. Well, and Tony Musket, the other thing that, you know, and I don't know how fair this is to him or how reasonable it is, and people will remember kind of what the injuries were or weren't, but, like, he got hurt, like, almost immediately upon coming into the game, like, almost every time he was in, right? Like, like, part of the reason Calandria came in to begin with was Tony Musket went out with an injury, and then he came back, and, I mean, it was like the 4th play of the game or something against Georgia Tech, he got hurt. And had to go back out and was basically done for the season. It's like, I wonder a little bit, like, is he just able to hold up against power conference defenses, basically, they just be playing every week? Like, I don't know.
We're going to find out together. Also, that UVA offensive line, I think, like, they bring a lot of guys back, but that was not a very good unit last year. So I think it's just something worth considering also.
C. Millis 003 makes a really good point here. Slamming 10 beers and hammering the Delaware State money line tonight. God bless America. Delaware State, the Hornets in Hawaii on the Big Island.
I wonder how much they got paid for that.
Man, not enough. They all did fly commercial out there.
That is from Delaware to Hawaii. That's like as far as you can go in the continental United States, basically.
Mm-hmm.
From the continental United States, almost.
This has got to be like on the table for like farthest that the two games on the same day have ever been. Playing a game on the Big Island and playing a game in Dublin, Ireland. Like that's a new one. No,
they had trouble getting there too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They spent money getting out there. They had to fly commercial.
Go Hornets, baby.
Evan Sandage, fair question. Has Hawaii ever been a 40-point favorite before this? It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
I think Delaware State was like a bottom 10 FCS team or something last year.
They're not good.
It's pretty rough.
Should we get to awards?
Probably should. Yeah, we've been doing this for an hour and 15. We had 2 games to talk about, so let's do it. We got a Go ACC moment of the week.
We do, and we got some sound to support it. Joe Tessitore and Jesse Palmer were
back to Dublin and Sláinte, my friend. Can we call more games in Ireland? Can we please have this? Yes. If you think I'm not drinking, Sláinte, everybody. It's unbelievable. Oh, that is good.
We've got the broadcast crew.
And so was the first half. 14-14.
Slamming Guinness.
live in front of God and everybody. Yeah.
And that was definitely the only beer that they had the entire game, was the one right when the camera came on after halftime, right?
Joe Tessitore always calls the game like he's got 6 beers in him. That's what I would say.
He hangs out with C. Millis when he's betting Delaware State, you know?
Jesus, yeah. I'm going to have to mix in a water before I'm betting Delaware State tonight.
You don't want to get horny for the Hornets? Come on, Mike.
Hey, let those of us who is not horny for the Hornets cast the first dollar at the window. I don't know.
Maybe horny in Hawaii or something. Yeah.
Couldn't be me.
Honeymoon there could have been me.
Hey.
Yeah. Hey. There it is.
Go ACC to that. That's the Go ACC moment of the week right there.
Let's Go ACC
Mike,
moment of the week.
Never mind.
Yeah, well, we had a second candidate. We had a second candidate for Go ACC moment of the week. We had a SMU player spitting on a Nevada player in the first half. I didn't get all the details, but yeah, ejected. So just something to mention there.
Yep, that's about right. Do we have a Kobe Bryant Memorial Volume Shooter of the Week? It might be DJU, honestly.
It might be DJU, yeah.
The stat line looks pretty decent after the final drive, but he spent like 3.5 quarters, and it was just like completions were averaging like 8 yards of completion. Like, my guy was doing a whole bunch of nothing, completing a whole bunch of passes. So, might be a little bit of a Kobe to DJU.
Yeah, that's an option. Roydell Williams, 12 carries for 38 yards, is up there too. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's slim pickings, right? It's only a couple games we're looking at here. Mm-hmm. So, just want to mention that. Oh, and shout out to new Nevada running back Pat Garwo as well. Former Boston College running back. He was a little banged up. He did carry it once for 8 yards tonight. So
I was going to mention
once for 6 yards.
1 carry for 6 and a catch for 8. So he had 2 touches.
Yep. So there we go.
Let's see. What else do we got other than team of the week and player of the week?
I mean, I think the team of the week is just going to have to be Georgia Tech.
Kind of seems that way. It's not SMU.
Oh God.
SMU. You don't get that the first week you're in the ACC when you almost lose to Nevada.
You forgot Mike's favorite award.
I probably did.
Queen Elizabeth II.
Memorial United Award.
Congratulations,
The-
Florida State's playoff hopes.
Yep, there you go.
There it is.
Florida
had a
State
good
0-2 in 2024.
0-2 in 2024. That's right.
By the way,
right.
did you see Brent Key's record against ranked ACC opponents?
Has he not lost a game yet, or he's 5-1 or something like that?
The Jackets are 5-0 against
5-0.
ranked ACC
5-0.
opponents under Brent Key, which
Pretty
which
good.
is nuts.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and then they also lost to Boston College, and
Bowling Green.
Bowling Green.
stuff
Yeah.
happens, right? Can't win them all. Can't win them all, but you can beat all the ranked opponents apparently. So
I mean, he hasn't lost to the Citadel yet, so he's got one up on the last guy.
right.
So
There's that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, could be a lot worse. That's for sure. Team of the week is Georgia Tech. Player of the week, man, Haynes King
it's got to be Haynes King. Yeah.
played his tail off. And I tweeted something about this, man. The physicality with him and his willingness to go in there and take contact, and he just looks completely unfazed every time he's gotten hit, and like I'm like holding my breath, like did he break his collarbone? Is he going to struggle to get up? He gets up and looks like nothing happened. Like his face is just stone. Like he never looks like anything hurts at all. Just unbelievable. And
Yeah.
the way that game went today, I mean, his willingness to just run straight into a pile of defenders was, incredible. He is a tough SOB, I would say, and that showed up today. So player of the week to him for sure.
Yeah. Player of the week there at RJ Maryland as well. 8 catches for 162 yards and that one touchdown at the end to basically pull SMU out of a potential upset situation against a really bad Nevada team. So
Yeah, nearly single-handedly winning that game for SMU at the end for sure.
yeah, which is what you expect an all conference player to do, which is what he will be. So
Yep, absolutely. All right, that's all I got for awards. Mike, Scott, anything else before we get out of here? You want to make bold predictions for the year? I've got an idea or two. Or we could
Okay.
do that on the Q&A show later this week.
yeah, we could do that. Q&A show coming up, so we'll put out a tweet. Bring your questions. Get that out there. Week 1 preview. Real football starts now, Joey.
Mm-hmm.
It's time. It's time.
Real football starts.
Loaded slate. What do we got? Like 18 games?
A bunch.
Gosh, there's only 17 teams. Well,
Okay,
actually,
it's 16 games then, because there's one
For
conference game.
for this
Yeah.
podcast. There's actually 18 teams. Just throwing that out there, but
The
talk
Bowling
about
Green
Bowling
Falcons,
Green
baby.
later.
Oh, by
Yeah.
the way, I tweeted this today. There it is. We're on the over 6.5 wins for Bowling Green. I bet that this morning. So
Is our guy Scott Loeffler still the coach?
yeah, he is. He's going to be there for a while because he's going to keep taking that terrible program to bowl games. So
Mike,
for
you
him.
know you don't have to like bet these things, right? Like you could just decide like, nah, I don't think I need that.
yeah,
Instead-
but I mean, SMU bet tonight aside, like I do like money. So
That's true. That's fair.
1-1 today. I did bet the under 55.5 that hit. So on the Georgia Tech game. So okay,
Yep.
1-1 start, not bad. SMU laid an
That's a
egg
start.
against a really terrible Nevada team. It happens.
Yeah.
Right, you're going to have those results. It's week 0, but we're back next week for week 1. And look, like, all right, is the SMU loss unfortunate? Yeah, it is. But I'm also holding a Georgia Tech over 4.5 ticket that I feel really good about. Right, so
You feel really, really good about it right now.
I feel fantastic about it. So I come out of week 0 in college football feeling pretty good about things
Yeah.
on that front.
Solid start.
Yeah.
I would say.
I would say so.
Well, on that note, we're going to come back and we're going to preview week 1. It's a full start for everyone in the conference. As Scott mentioned, we've got 16 games involving ACC teams and another game involving a team that, is an honorary ACC team as far as we're concerned. We got 3 of those teams playing on Thursday night. So the big one Thursday night being North Carolina playing at Minnesota at 8 o'clock
Yep.
on Fox. So we're going to come back, preview those. That'll probably go live. Probably aim to get that live like Wednesday morning.
Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Look for it in
make-
your feed Wednesday, unless things happen like responsibilities.
Yeah, it's what are there 5 kids between the 3 of us now? So stuff happens sometimes, but the goal
You're
is to get
responsible
this.
for 60% of them.
Yeah, well, yeah, don't remind me. The goal is to get this recorded and live by Wednesday morning. So keep it tuned here. We'll get you ready for week 1 as everybody is in action, including the 3 teams that played today, as they got to go play their second games now in week 1, which, figure that out for yourself. So keep it tuned here. We will get you ready for that, and we'll be here as the season goes on, previewing every week and trying to do these Saturday night recaps as much as possible. So if you were not in the chat tonight, we first of all really appreciate the folks that were. We've had a lot of people joining us throughout. YouTube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast is where you can go to join. We've had a lot of fun with folks in the chat and in the comments, so really appreciate the folks that showed up. Would love to have you come join us in future weeks if you were not able to tonight. So go hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon. You'll be notified when we're going to go live Saturday night. I'll say after the games are over, but I feel like this year we've got some Pac-12 After Dark games that are now ACC After Dark games.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
might be a little bit of a recap/watch-along situation as we go through
Similar
the
to
year. So,
tonight. Yeah.
yeah, this was a nice little appetizer for how that's going to go. So come hang out with us, watch the late game, talk about the games that have already been finished throughout the year. We'll do that. So again, youtube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. We are going to really kind of try to push for 500 subscribers by the end of
This
the season.
Yep.
Well, Producer Scott, what are we? We're a little over 300 now, right?
I think I checked the stats during the stream. I think we added a couple. I think around 315, 310-ish.
Yeah.
So
Let's go.
let's, just keep hitting that button. Tell your friends. Take their phones. Hit the
Yep.
subscribe button. Don't tell them you
Mhm.
did. They won't know. It's fine.
Come join us for a nightcap. Come, hang out and enjoy and talk about the day that was. And it's a wild game, and we're glad after a long off season that it's back, and should be a lot of fun. So come hang out with us. All right. On that note, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, email, all those things. Hit us up. BC Podcast, ACC, or Basketball Conference Podcast @gmail.com. We are going to come back, preview games, and get the season started properly. How's that sound?
Yep, let's do it.
And there's a Q&A episode coming. So, what is that, like Monday we're going to do that? When are we going to do that, Mike?
Let's try to do it Monday.
Let's try for Monday.
Okay.
Try for Monday. I've got a couple other bold predictions I want to make. I already put down my flag in the season preview episode about North Carolina, but I've got a couple other ones that I want to float and kind of get your thoughts on it. So we'll do that on Monday in the Q&A episode. How's that sound?
We can do that. Let's do it.
It sounds good. All right. Anything else before we get out of here, Mike, Scott? you good?
Yeah. One last thing. If you're new or you haven't checked out your team or any other team's previews, we did all of them. So go look at those before the season fully gets kicked off next week.
Yep. Do that. All 17 teams, most of them previewed by Mike.
Most
Yep.
of them. 15 out of the 15?
17.
17? 15 out of the... No, I know. I was just thinking in my head. Was it
Yes,
15?
15
I did?
out of the 17.
You
You
were
did-
on 15 of them.
Yeah.
There was one of
15
them we did together.
out of
I did
17.
2 of them myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. All right, we're good.
Yeah.
15 out of 17. Yep.
15 to 17. Yeah. So, but don't worry. I've been listening to them. You did a great job. They were a lot of
Thank
fun.
you.
So,
Thank you. Appreciate that.
yeah, really good info. We had a lot of great guests on there too, as we've kind of gotten into a really good rhythm and people that we bring on every year, and they're very well informed covering the program. So, good way to find out about who these teams are before we get into the season.
Absolutely agree.
Yep. Ready to get out of here?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. For that guy, Mr. Mike McDaniel, for producer Scott, I am Joey Weaver. Thank you guys so much for listening. Really appreciate all the folks that joined us in the chat tonight. We will talk to you again very, very soon as we get into full-on week 1. Until next time, go Jackets and go ACC.
Had to sneak that in there.
Mm-hmm.